identity, then you have to feed yourself. So that bubble wants to become bigger and bigger, and it wants to swallow up other little bubbles, and it gets competitive and all the rest of it. And then as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, one fine day it bursts. And when it bursts, what happens? It gets back to the totality. And so are we all. As individuals, say, you know who I am? I'm so and so, and you give your visiting card and you say, I do this and that and the other. And you're egoistic about your achievements. Even as you are asserting an identity of your own, you are still part of the totality. You are still Atman, you are still Brahman. And it is that Atman, the spirit, which lends its power to you, lends enough power for you to assert your individuality and ego. And the moment you consider yourself an individual separate from others, you have to become bigger and richer and more, etc., etc. Get competitive with others, you want to overcome others, you want to eat up other people. And then what happens? One fine day the bubble bursts and you're back to the totality. The capacity to identify with the totality even when you are an individual is considered wisdom. So, dissolve the ego. As you dissolve the ego, your abrasiveness leads to developing a healing touch. When you're egoistic, you get marginalized. As you dissolve the ego, you integrate with the larger unit. When you're egoistic, you're divergent. As you dissolve the ego, you converge. When you're egoistic, you focus on people's faults. When your ego gets less, you develop the ability to look and identify other people's skills and leverage them, use them to form one unit of greater power. As Emerson said, when you dissolve your ego, you're able to learn from others. Emerson said, every man I meet is in some way my superior. What a wonderful attitude to have. So, yesterday we had come up to verse 34 and now we move to 35.
Yajnatva na punarmoham evam yasyasi pandava yena bhutanya sheshena drakshasyaatmanyatho mayi.
Having known which, you shall not get into delusion again, O Pandava, by which you will see all beings in the self and then in me. Now in these three verses, 35, 36 and 37, he gives the result of gaining the knowledge. What is the result? In this verse, he gives the result with reference to the intellect. In 36 and 37, mind and body. So, in 34, he is given the qualifications of a student and the qualifications of a guru. So, all of us are students of the Gita, and to the extent we cultivate the qualities of a student, which are pranipatena, prashnena, seva. The ability to surrender. To the moment you understand that somebody is superior to me in whatever way, you have to surrender, and this surrender facilitates knowledge. The second, that surrender should not be blind, not blind belief, but question. Why question? Not because you want to question the credentials of the person, the credibility of the individual, but because you want to question so that your intellect is convinced and you act out of your conviction. And when you have surrender and questioning, the right attitude, you will progress spiritually. And when you progress spiritually, you have to express your gratitude to the Guru. And the third very important factor in a student's mindset should be service-mindedness. Not only to the Guru, not only to the knowledge, but then it spreads to service-mindedness towards all. The more you learn to give, the more you learn to act out of a sense of indebtedness, the greater will be your spiritual development. It's not just about learning the Gita. It's not about sitting there and arguing with people and say, is this right or is that right? Clarity of thinking comes when you apply the principles of Gita in your life. Just become service-minded. Learn the art of giving. Giving is not just giving you things that are useless to you. Instead of throwing it out, you give as a gift to somebody. This is not giving. What is giving? And he's told us that. Dravya yajna, tapo yajna, yoga yajna, svadhyaya jnana yajna. If you are able to do all four, then you rise spiritually. So what is the result? When you develop spiritually, you must have a yardstick. You must know whether you've developed. You must know how much you've developed. You must also know how much more there is to go. So the effect of spiritual development is first, yat jnatva na punarmoham, having known which you will not get back into delusion. So he's talking about the state of realization. He's talking about the absolute. What is the absolute? First of all, the use of the word punaha again means you will not again get deluded, means now you are deluded. What is this delusion? You might say, I am not deluded. Delusion, fundamental delusion, is that you believe this state that you are in is real. This itself is a delusion. You see a world where there is only Brahman. It's like, now you're awake. After a while, one or two will slip into deep sleep. It's very comfortable here. The seats are comfortable, the external thing is, where climate is comfortable, the lights are dim, very conducive to go to sleep. When you go to sleep, you fall asleep and you enter a dream. Sometimes, even when you're sleeping for 5 minutes, you enter a dream and you wake up and you say, how on earth did I get into that dream? If you remember the dream that you have experienced after waking up, it is the most incredible experience, because what you can't understand is, now, how did you ever think that that dream was real when now you are established in the knowledge that the dream was what? Illusion. I'm sure every one of us has gone through this experience. You dream and wake up, and that dream could have lasted for just 2 seconds. In those 2 seconds, you've created a whole universe. You've created a dreamer, you've created dream objects, you've created dream beings, and you've got so involved in it. To you, as a dreamer, in that dream, everything is as real as it is now. You don't have a shade of a doubt. Having woken up, now you believe this is real. What Vedanta tells us, and this might shake the very foundation of your existence, but you must at least accommodate this thought. This is the highest thought that Vedanta has to offer, which is that this waking state that you believe is so real is as illusory as the dream which you are now convinced is unreal. So that moha, this delusion, moha, is absolute. What is this delusion? For us to be able to understand what delusion is, are you able to understand that it is extremely difficult to understand you're deluded when you are deluded? Example, when a person is under the influence of alcohol means completely drunk. Okay? You try telling him that he is drunk. Will he accept it? He will not accept it. And this is the most common reason why there is a fight between husband and wife. The husband gets drunk and the wife, while he is drunk, is trying to convince him that he is intoxicated. It's an impossible task. The best thing to do is to switch off and keep quiet till he regains sanity. Similarly, when you are deluded, it is impossible to understand you're deluded. Therefore, they give us examples. The example is something that you and I may have experienced in our lives. You know, sometimes in the dark, for instance, at 8 o'clock as you walk out of this auditorium, you may trip over an object on the floor. And as you trip over it, you look at it, and you scream, there's a snake here. It's a snake. And that object has touched your foot a little bit. So you believe, you say, the snake has bitten me. And as you're talking about it, you can actually feel the poison going up your leg, and you say, it's a poisonous snake. I can feel it. There's something happening in my leg. And you're panic-stricken. Your neighbor means the person who's next to you walking out of the auditorium, says, what are you talking about? That's not a snake. That's only a rope that is lying coiled. It looks like a snake. And you know, when a rope, towards the end, it sort of, the ends come out. And in the dark, it's possible that it looks like the hood of a snake. And you say, what nonsense are you talking? It's a snake. I know the snake has bitten me. I've seen the hood and I've seen it move. And you can swear by the fact or by your conviction that it's a snake until your neighbor goes running back, brings a torch and directs the torch at that object. And then you say, oh, you want to get away from there. You feel such a fool. Now, when you are in delusion and you're seeing the snake, the cause of all your problems stem from what? Stem from? Is it the snake that causes your problems? It is ignorance of the rope that is the root cause of all your problems. Now let's get back to our lives. Every one of us has some problem or the other. One person says, oh, you know, my boss at work is such a tyrant. He's being... yesterday somebody was saying, that boss made his life miserable. Somebody else says it's a mother-in-law is a problem. The other day, you know, there was a lady, elderly lady, who had a servant who'd been with her for 40 years. Very loyal servant, everything was fine with the servant, except that once in a while he would go and drink alcohol because he needed a break from her. So, because she was old and she would get hassled with his drinking, I went there and asked him, I said, why do you drink so much? You know what he turned around and said? He said, Mem Saab, if you had to be with this lady 24 hours a day, you would also start drinking. So to a servant, all of us have some problem or the other. And we believe the cause of that problem is somebody outside of ourselves, out there in the world. What the Gita is telling us is, our sitting there and saying, oh, my master is a problem, or the boss is a problem, or the mother-in-law is a problem, and of course, perennial problem is husband or wife. Every married person says, don't make the mistake of getting married to an unmarried person. Why didn't you have the wisdom before is the question. So, we believe the problem is out there and we are trying to solve the problem there. What the Gita says is, there is no problem there. It's all moha, delusion. Problem is created by the fact that you are ignorant of your own self. And it is this ignorance of the self that causes the whole mess. Therefore, the Gita deals with the original ignorance. It's like taking a torch. However much you sermonize to the person who's seeing a snake, he will not be convinced until you take a torch and direct it at the object. Then you don't need to say anything. Instantly the person understands. Instantly the pain is gone, the panic is gone, everything is gone. Similarly with us. Leave your problems aside and focus on gaining knowledge of the self. Even before you gain the state of realization, what confidence it gives you, what amount of strength it gives you, what a positive attitude it gives you. That is enough for you to go through life. But we don't want that. We'll sit there and complain and get depressed and get frustrated and do everything except what it takes to get out of it. We'll wallow in self-pity and say, oh, this is my life, what to do? I'm doomed. You're doomed by yourself. So, Yajnatva na punarmoham, you will not get deluded again, O Pandava. Pandava, son of Pandu, he's affectionately addressing him. In every communication, definitely spiritual communication, there must be this genuineness, this affection for the recipient. Must be the caring that a person is unnecessarily suffering and I have the wherewithal to help the person. It's like a doctor. When a doctor deals with a patient, he can't be 100% clinical about it. He has to have a little bit of feeling for the patient, not a little, more. That's what's missing in life, the feeling, the caring, the affection. So, O Pandava, then he says, by which you will see all beings in the self and then in me. This is the ultimate test of spiritual development. To what extent are you able to see oneness among people? Or are you creating demarcations and differences where there is oneness? From joint families we become nuclear families. From nuclear families now we are going to, like in America, one individual living in one home. In Toronto the other day, in Canada, somebody took me to the richest area, richest street in Toronto. Huge houses, like palaces. But not a single human being anywhere in that. You can't see someone inside, you can't see someone outside. And I asked him, I said, what is this? They're all beautiful homes, but they're no human beings. You know what he said? In these huge homes, there is usually only one person who lives there. And that one person is usually traveling somewhere in the world. He's never there. That's our state. We've reached a state where we can't get on with any other individual in the world. You have got to have not just your own room with attached bathroom, you have to have your own house with enough peripheral grounds around it so that you don't even see another human being. Extreme intolerance. Here he's saying you should have the capacity to see yourself. All beings in the self means complete identification and oneness with every single, not human being, living being. When you place a mirror before a monkey, what does the monkey see? It doesn't see itself. It sees another monkey. And the moment it sees another monkey, the moment there is that otherness in its perception, what happens? The monkey feels threatened. The monkey feels insecure. The monkey feels competitive and hits out at what it believes is the other monkey. And what happens? It only succeeds in breaking the mirror and hurting itself. You place the same mirror before a human being, and what a completely different reaction there is. The human being has this instinct to preen before the mirror. The ugliest human being will admire himself in the mirror. Where does this spring from? The ability, you see the reflection there, but you understand it as a reflection of yourself. And this is what you must do with other living beings. The moment you see another individual, if you are able to see yourself in that individual, what great joy it gives you. like a mother who sees her child. When the child comes home from school, usually, especially boys, they go to school immaculately dressed, everything white, white shirt, white shorts, white socks, white shoes, everything white. By the time the child comes back, you can't even recognize the child because it's completely full of dirt. Everything is messed up. And yet, as the child comes, the mother doesn't see the dirt, the mother doesn't see the mud in his hair, the mother doesn't see the ink all over. The mother sees my child. And what a thrill that child gives them, the mother gets. Even the dirt and the mud on the child is a source of amusement to the mother. Have you seen it? The mother says, "Hare, where did you get all this mud from?" She's amused at the mud that the child is carrying. And this is the thrill that you will get if you are able to identify with other human beings. Today, when you look at other human beings, you say, oh, this one is crude, and that one is uncultured, and third one is immature, and fourth is childish, and you're so quick at passing judgment on people. But why are you judgmental? Have you ever thought about it? You're judgmental because you're unable to see a oneness between you. The day you rise to see that oneness between you, you will look at the imperfections of the individual as amusing. And that's what he's talking about. This is the test of development. Not how many chapters of the Gita you mastered, not which spiritual organization you're a member of, not your lifestyle or the lack of it, but just the ability to see oneness among beings. You see all beings in the self and also in me. Once you're able to see a oneness among people, then you see them as nothing but reflections of the Lord. So, all beings, living beings, all living beings, which includes animals, insects, fish, every single creature. Try to accommodate living beings, then think of non-living beings. We are not able to see even human beings, forget all living beings. See, why he's saying all living beings is because he's talking about love. How can you love an inert object? You can understand it as a manifestation of Brahman, but you can't love. You can't say, I love this table. So that's why he's saying living beings. 36.
Api chedasi papebhyah sarvebhyah papakruttamaha sarvam jnana plavenaiva vrujinam santarishyasi.
In this verse, he is giving the effect of spiritual evolution with respect to the mind, with reference to the mind. So here he says, even if you are the most sinful among sinners, you will indeed cross over all sin only by the boat of knowledge. Papi, sinner, means an agitated person. Prior to realization, because we have desires, we're full of desires, we're burdened with desires, most of which are unfulfilled. It is these unfulfilled desires that cause mental agitations and stress in us. So once you reach the state of realization, means you have exhausted all desires. When desires are exhausted, you're free from agitations, you're free from vasanas. Vasanas are nothing but unmanifest desires. They are the precursor of desire. So then he gives a metaphor that is very popular in the Shastras, and this metaphor is the boat of knowledge. The boat represents the knowledge of the scriptures. The winds are the passions of the mind. The captain is the intellect, and the compass are the scriptures. A Western thinker has said that the Western world has created a beautiful boat, and everything is perfect in it. The whole thing is computerized, everything is right in it. The only thing they forgot to put in the boat is the compass. And they say this compass represents the values that the scriptures teach us. This compass, says that Western thinker, is what you need to get from India. Because India's great thinkers, great sages and saints of the past had specialized in just the compass. As long as you have the compass, it doesn't matter what boat there is. So, even if you are the most sinful among sinners, you will indeed cross over all sin. See, it is not where